Okay, looks like we are live. As a matter of fact, I just want to check. I know I go through this little preamble every time, but I just want to check. I'm getting better at this. As a matter of fact, I'm teaching myself. Nobody's taught me how to, the ins and outs of podcasting. I've had to teach myself everything. So I'm learning something new every day. Anyhow, thanks again for tuning into the program. This is going to be a really good one. This is part 3 of the series that I'm doing with Eric Hall. He's a teacher from Australia. He's going through today his Bible prophecy chart. We showed a little bit of it. I guess we showed an image. We tried to get a close-up and show a close-up of it during our first session that we had a couple weeks ago. And then the second podcast that we did, we went through some explanations as to what the various sections of the chart are intended to explain. In this one, though, we're going to go through a more, I guess, which you would say more strenuous or more explanatory description. Eric's got a whiteboard. As you can see, we're going to switch this in a minute to speaker view so that you can get a bigger view of what it is that he's showing. And I also asked him to go over that plumb line of Amos chapter 7, because of course, we all know the verse in Amos chapter 7, a plumb line I will set in the midst of my people. And then I think the prophet says, and I will not pass by them anymore. So I wanted to get Eric's thoughts on that. But first, let me introduce him to the program. Eric, how are you?
Good. I'm great. How are you?
Doing excellent, thank you. I'm going to switch this to speaker mode. Okay, so you've got center stage. So I want to welcome you to the show. He's having his morning coffee. It's 11 o'clock right now, 11 a.m. in Australia. I envy him the early hours, although I got to say that I don't think I can use another cup of coffee right now, but got a whiteboard. Looks great. So what do you want to do first, Eric? Do you want to, this is basically going to be another teaching session. You're going to be presenting. Do you want to go into discuss the plumb line first, or do you want to weave that into your description, or how do you want to do it?
Yeah. There's the plumb line there. You probably can't see it.
Okay.
This guy here, can you see that very well, or should I?
You may want to tip you may want to position. Okay, there we go. I see it. Yep. Cyrus. Okay. Cyrus, King of Kings, Lord of Lords, Zerubbabel,
Yep.
And I see the plumb line in his hand. So so I think that's the kind of stuff that I think people really want to know, because as I've and I think, again, let me just switch that back to gallery so that everybody could see, because I'm in the middle of talking. But that's something that I think everybody would like to know, because I've had some questions. People asked me some questions, and I said, well, I answered as best I could. But again, there's still some stuff I'm learning. So please, if you would, explain that some more for the viewers.
Yep. Well, actually, that's the signet ring as well. You can't my drawing. So plumb line and signet ring. So he's Cyrus and Zerubbabel together all throughout Scripture, where it says Lord of Lords and King of Kings. So, and that's a big, massive 536 time statement. And so Jesus is the conflation of the suffering servant, and 50 years later, Jubilee, this Cyrus and Zerubbabel. This is also Christ on a donkey, the marriage, the wedding, the water, wedding, wine. So I've got there's seven ways to do it. There's 7 timelines. And I've only got about 5 or 6 of them. We've got the valleys, the valley of the shadow of death, finished here. The valley of Jehoshaphat, judgment, finished there. And then the valley of dry bones started. And then the valley of dry bones ended with the Gog Wars. 7 years there. That's Daniel's last, Ezekiel's last 7 years, and Daniel's last 3.5. Yeah, well, the plumb line about the not passing by is in the well, it's in the second vision. Zechariah had 8 visions, and it replaces what is it? Well, God passing by Moses with his hand. So what did he do? Put him in a rock and put his hand over him and then walk past or something. And the plumb line replaces that, which means he's not going to pass by anymore. So whenever you see the plumb line, it means God is, Emmanuel, which is why it's not in the New Testament. It's nowhere in the New Testament. So, and it ends up in Zerubbabel's hand. It goes from God's hand into Zerubbabel's hand. So, and then not only that, the 7 spirits of God led the singing about it. They were really happy about it. And the 7 spirits of God there in Zechariah 4 is the same 7 spirits that are in Isaiah 11, that 11:2, the Spirit of the Lord and justice and all that knowledge. So that's where the plumb line fits in. That's all messianic. This is all servant, Old Testament end, and this is New Testament beginning. There's a parousia there. There's a parousia there, and that's what AD 70 is. They're conflating both of these. Jesus is saying he's come to fulfill the law and the prophets all at once. And the law was fulfilled 586, and that's hell and everything. And the prophets were fulfilled at the end of Daniel. So, and then righteousness comes in. So you could be righteous by the law, or righteous by the Spirit in the new covenant, or righteous by birth, that's us now. We're righteous by birth. All this is all finished. So, and that's the good news of it all being finished. So, just on that, what happens now is that yes, the way the Antichrist system's set up, Greece there's democracy everywhere and crooked, this and that, and sexism, racism, slavery. So, and God didn't want that. So, so with this, this is the truth, and you don't sell it. So, to me, like, I can't get anyone to sell me out on it or prove me wrong or whatever. The only thing I can say is to people, to New Testament people, is that it's not that important because of God's presence. Where there's God's presence when you sing, which is what happens to everyone. That's why. And then whatever church you go to, they call it the Holy Spirit, or they put other things on it. Like your words matter. That's legalism. And but other than that, it's sort of so I don't pass on the big lie anymore, and it helps everyone in general, because one day someone's going to say, I've had enough of all these wars and politicians with their wars, and that's what God sent Cyrus in to do. It was the same as it was then. Now the rich politicians had slaves and all that stuff. The whole economy is set up for, well, over there it's military. Your military budgets are just huge. You could, if you could empty that treasury and give it to the poor people, you'd flip over to a Persian system, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen because everyone's so Hellenized that this is just removed out of people's minds. What God did to actually fix everything when he sent in big worldwide Christ of Cyrus and everything, and got rid of all got rid of slavery and gave the treasury to slaves and things like that, which is quite a big deal. I would have liked to have been there. Yeah, well, and following the trail of the Plumbline still from Amos. So Isaiah 28, 17, it's in there as well, but it's a plumb line of righteousness there, and it's called the measuring line is justice, and the plumb line is righteousness. And I think it says, well, all your magistrates are righteous, all your inhabitants will be righteous. So if you haven't got Zerubbabel building the New Jerusalem as well, you're going to be open to all sorts of things there about what the New Jerusalem actually was. And I should have just drawn it there. The New Jerusalem was there, as per Isaiah 65, that everyone quotes. Like every jot and tittle of the law passed away when heaven and earth passed away. So every jot and tittle of the law here, and then every jot and tittle of the prophets. That's the suffering servant there. Is that too glary or something? Is it?
So that's 586 BC. Let me see if I get this right. So 586 BC, we've got the I guess that's where the city was destroyed, right?
Yep. The desolation of there was 3 ways to die. You could be put to the sword, burn in hell, Gehenna, or exile. With head shaved, barefoot, naked, and that was worse than death, going to Babylon like that. So, but from there they're saved. So,
okay. And so just to clarify, for our listeners, because I don't think this is the part that I don't think they understand. So you've got the cross there, suffering servant, 586 or 588, 586 BC. So the suffering servant. That is the nation, right? That's the nation of Israel. That's not like a single individual, right?
Yeah, it was the corporate body of Israel was the servant, and right at the end, it's servant, 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 and then right at the end, he's the suffering servant that has his beard plucked and dies and is buried.
Yeah, that's the part. That's the part that I think people are getting messed up on, because they're saying, well, there was no cross in 586. So the way you're describing it, the suffering servant, the corporate body, I guess, of Israel was put to death, I guess. And then the rich man's tomb was during the 70 years of exile. Is that how am I understanding it correctly?
Yeah. Yeah, it was actually it was 50 years burial, but it was 7 years captivity, and then there's this overlap of 70 years of no temple from when the foundations were pulled up to when the foundations were laid. That's 70 years there, and there's 70 years from the first exile to the last exile. So there's 2 overlapping 70 years. But on that, they're like what they've done with Jesus. Before it was Hellenized, it was he bled to death. There's stripes there, like he was wounds and stripes. Like that's still Isaiah's 53, and so the body that bled to death was exiles were the life. Life is in the blood. That Leviticus 20 something. Life is in the blood, and that's what all that nonsense with that's all it means. Life is in the blood. So Israel bled to death, long and slow, 606 or 722 really, and then 606 BC, the first exile, 597 the second exile, and the last of the exile, because there was no one left to exile. They were either dead or all gone. It was desolate. And that's the reset from the covenant gone. I can't see any. They were uncovenanted here. And that's where, without God, without hope in the world, that's where that is. And that's who's, Paul's preaching to exiles, really. Paul never preached hell. So Paul starts here somewhere, wooing him back from exile. And that's what his vexation of spirit is. Just, if you don't come back, you've got return written on your heart, and you're not coming back. So you're going to have, your spirit's going to be vexed. Vexation of spirit was them not coming back, and that's why they were called dogs as well. They're the sheep and the dogs from that when Jesus goes to that woman in exile. She's a dog. She's a rich, I'll stay where I am. I don't need to come back, and because healing was for the sheep. That's return and be healed. And so this guy here, like, he's introduced in Isaiah 1 as your whole body's sick, from the top of your head to the sole of your feet. And he was, and that was all because he needed healing. So the healing all happens with return. The sickness and everything happens before, and it's a water to wine statement. Healing is actually, and I know that all the healings in the New Testament are actually like that. I just, the girl was not going to be healed unless she acknowledged that she didn't deserve it. Because people who return, the sheep, they were promised it. They were promised healing. So that's so that he bled to death, stripes, bleeding, people, and then he finally dies, and his lifeless, bloodless body is taken to Babylon and buried there, and then resurrection happens in 536, or the first fruits. This is only the first fruits of the resurrection. Is that glary, or I don't know what?
No, it looks good. It looks good. If you could just, the angle, I think, is a little bit off. I think maybe if we just the angle a little, I think if you move it maybe so that it's, yeah, like that. That's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that way we could zoom in on it, and let me go ahead.
And over here I've got two witnesses here, Zerubbabel and Joshua. And they stood the whole new covenant, and then they fell. And Revelation's got 3.5 days, and it's actually, as long as it's got times and half a times, it's right. So and that can be days, hours, generations, like 5, 9, 3.5. 3.5 generations from when Moloch was set up. You count, and then that's the jealous God coming to do his thing. And then so he's buried, and then return is the resurrection. So, and that's where the rich man's tomb. And Cyrus, make sure a big time statement that Cyrus rolled the stone away. This is bing, 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 536. That's the first fruits of the resurrection. And then the harvest is over here. 2 witnesses stood, 2 witnesses fell. Zeus stood, Zeus fell. Michael stood, and that's where we are. Michael stood and was, it says for 3.5 years. So once righteousness came in, we actually don't need any sort of Michael or prophet or Holy Spirit or anything. We're teaching. Everyone's born righteous, and But you sell out. That's my thing. I wouldn't sell out if you sold out for something else other than this, then you're Hellenized. You know, you're reading the New Testament and you're saying, no, how he bled to death and all very gruesome. But it was the same thing. That the 2-year siege was like how people mourn. That's who they mourn for. These last people in the siege. That was the morning of the 5th month, because the fire was on the 5th of Ab of 586 BC. So, yeah. So I think that's where, you know, people are going to throw stuff at me and call me a heretic and all this, but it actually happened. So I've got the winds, the 4 winds scattered to the 4 winds, gathered from the 4 winds, and there's a end of that as well. There's actually a double portion gathering before the eternal Sabbath. That's how you read that, and that's the end of the covenant system. There's a first fruits and then a double portion gathering at the end, and that's Zechariah 9, restored double, like Job. This is all Job here, and then nothing, just talk, and then double portion with his daughters are beautiful, and he's got another wife, and he's got double of everything, double camels. I think it's got double donkeys, double sheep, I think goats, something else. I think he had double sons as well. I think his double sons and his daughters were beautiful instead of ugly, apparently. Yeah, so there's a few ways to do it, like death, burial, resurrection. Well, here I got Lucifer's decree worldwide. Nobody should, could, or would live in Jerusalem ever again. And then he dies, Lucifer dead. Christ decree, that's the Cyrus cylinder, go home. Well, if you don't go home, you can come and live in paradise with me, which actually happened. He built the Garden of Eden there for his the Medes, who turned out to be a lot of Ephraim. A lot of Ephraim were looked after by Cyrus. They ended up as Median warriors, the Medes, who actually did this. The Medes are in there. I should write that in there.
Okay, so that's pretty interesting. So basically, so the first fruits, switch this back to gallery. So the first fruits happens at the return, I guess, from Babylon, right?
Yeah, the first fruits were the named and numbered in Ezra 2, and that's where you get
Oh,
the
okay.
144,000 replacement there. And that the same thing, they had white robes and had the seal of God on their forehead.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the first fruits of Messiah, first fruits of the resurrection. I think it says there, first fruits of all this, the new covenant, and then the jar of manna. I'm talking about that, the jar of manna in the Ark of the Covenant. The lid went on. Well, they had double portion, and the lid went on, and then that went into the box, into the golden ark. And that's with the Plumbline replacing. Plumbline's in the visions, and in the visits, it's got the other replacement is the golden crown. That's right, the golden crown. Joshua, it was on Joshua's head, and then it was put into the temple as a memorial. That replaced the golden ark, and so during the Second Temple period, when you went to it was just the tabernacle. It didn't have a Holy of Holies or anything. and it had this golden crown in there, and it says it's a memorial for returnees, and the list is they got the gold to make it from. I think there's 4 people mentioned there, and all those names mean something. Zephaniah, son of Zephaniah, and Hen means grace, and just the main things to do with the wine instead of the water. And then they make an elaborate crown, elaborate, just because the ark was elaborate golden ark. It's just an easy thing to remember, to replace the golden crown, replace the golden ark in the temple, and then you got Joshua sitting on the throne of, and he's just apparently I haven't got him there because Joshua seems to be a sign of everything. Everything about Joshua is a sign of something else. His hat, his new clothes, he himself. In the 5th vision, I think, or 4th vision, it's he replaces Aaron and his followers. Aaron and his 2 sons and 70 elders are replaced by Joshua and your companions. It says, Joshua, you and your companions are assigned, as the priesthood was organised in the new covenant, completely gone, like Aaron's gone. There's no Aaron, there's no sons of Aaron, there's no 70 elders either, or whoever they were, 70. I think they were supposed to be teachers, those guys there. As you know, this Zechariah says there's no prophets after him, and there's no kings, obviously. And that all went to Joshua being a sign. All he had to do was sit down. Oh, right, that's how God did it. He put the counsel between them both. Or some versions say the 2 officers. The 2 officers were put as one, under one person there. So, or you can read it as they both, Joshua and Zerubbabel, fulfilled all that stuff, all the stuff about Davidic line. It's got to be from David and all that stuff, sort of thing. And that's what the from Bethlehem is too. It's not. It says Bethlehem, from you will come. Not he won't be born there. He's just from the line of stump of Jesse. That's just another way to say, just son of David, or Messiah ben David, and all that. So.
Okay.
And the Medes is, if you don't have Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, then you're going to end up with Rome again. So Media, Persia, not together because Media were the big brother for a long, long time of Persia, and then it was only 550 when they just agreed from the inside to go with this system that Cyrus obviously put up, that they knew about, that they all knew what was the economy was going to change, that he was going to collapse the slavery and empty their treasuries and everything. I'm just saying, because people putting something in Daniel, especially the 70 weeks, wow, the 70 weeks is here. The 70th week is here. There's the middle of it, and there's the end of it. I don't know. There's actually, I think in Leviticus, somewhere 23 maybe, about the heptads, the 77s, and it's not mathematical. People are adding up, getting 490 or something, which I know it's very like lots and lots of people preach Daniel as AD 70. Even like Don Preston has Isaiah 2 as AD 70. What? That's here. So, but it is, AD 70 is a conflation of that and that. So that's why you get people saying, oh no, there's got to be a man of perdition. which is here, which is Antiochus. Here, thou or die. That's the man of sin, the compulsory uncircumcision, and the temple was a gym, naked gym, and all that sort of stuff. So, and that was 3.5 years. And so Daniel's in here predicting what he saw, and he saw a war between Christ and Greece, and Croesus and Cyrus, where Lucifer helped, and then he didn't. I don't know what happened. He pulled out and left. And I think that's got to do with, you got to remember, Greece is the only one throughout the Bible that was anti-Christ, resisted Persia, resisted Cyrus's stuff, resisted Darius later, who followed Cyrus. That's why they were anti-Darius as well. He followed Cyrus pretty faithfully and was rewarded with expansion. That's I see that as a reward. Also the Hasmonean expansion as well. And it says expand. The 10 toes get crushed, and then the expanding kingdom. The more you de-Hellenize, the more you expand. So and I think that goes for spiritually and mentally as well. I think the more truth you have, the more you expand, and the freer you are. Like freedom from legal slavery, freedom from spiritual slavery, freedom from mental slavery. So, and they expanded and it was, they were circumcising Philistines on the mountains, the same mountains that David did, and they did all that. Well, that was Goliath. That Judah Maccabee killed Goliath. But you're going to say, well, why are we still Hellenized? Why is the world being run by Antichrist system that Greece wanted? And that's because of this. That's why this matters. That's why the New Testament, Jesus bleeding to death, is here. That's why you got to do it. You got to de-Hellenize, and then you got to have him buried here, like being flogged and stripes. And here's the curse. That's the crown of thorns. There's hell. That the hell was for the people right at the end. That was a judgment. They could either go into captivity or go to hell. And that's a lake of fire as well. That's from Isaiah 5. The holy seed will be saved. The whole place will be obliterated, burnt, and no walls. The whole thing will be gone. But the holy seed will be saved, and that's all it says. And then they embellish it as they go along. Who is it? Oh, it's the stump of Jesse. It's the branch that grew from the tender shoot. I think the Jeremiah picks it up. A shoot, tender shoot, and then branch. And then Zechariah the Revelator says, behold, here's the man who's the branch. He will build a temple. Yes, he will build a temple. So we know who that was. It was a rubber ball with his plumb line. So if you got no plumb line, you got no branch, you got no Messiah, you got no healing, you got no righteousness. So that's why I think the New Testament has really robbed people of all those things, because what was I going to say? Yeah. The branch, the remnant, and then it was the first fruits after that, and then a harvest, and that's all from, if you've got Jesus saying, I'm the branch, forget it. You won't like this. You won't like the truth. You'll go, no, thanks. I think Jesus is the branch and I'm the vine there. And those people are, and then they claim the witness of the Spirit that they're right. And that's how it happens. And just on that, this was a legal. The old covenant was a legal covenant with laws, and it was judged in a court. It was court judgments, and that all ended here. It all ended with hell and captivity, just like Moses said. Just you'll go into captivity. You won't be able to do this covenant. You'll or you will go into idolatry. That's what it says. No other gods, and you won't be able to do that. So and then so it goes. That's that layer there. That's 42,360 in Ezra 2. This is the that's where the 144,000. So you either pick the truth or the Hellenization. And I think it's so strong because the best lie is the one closest to the truth. That's the best lie. And the 144,000 is the best lie. And it's the facade, the straight facade on the 42,360, who were named and numbered, and I heard their number. That's what that means. I heard their number. I didn't see them. So, and he's saying it's from Scripture. He's saying I'm replacing the 42,360. And another reason why that's important is because it means 3.5 years, moons, 42 moons, 360 suns. It's 3.5 years, and that's where Daniel. That's why he says times and half a times, so many times, because he saw the 3.5 generations. He saw the 3.5 years here. He saw them. He saw them walk out. He saw Zerubbabel on donkey, drawbridge, Babylon, Euphrates River over into the promised land, and or the highway from Assyria. That's what he did. He went up and over. And Isaiah 11:16. Zerubbabel's Exodus worked exactly the same way that the Egyptian Exodus worked. That's what it says there, 11:16. And that means that Zerubbabel was born in Babylon for the same reason that Moses was born in Egypt. So the Red Sea was split for Moses for the same reason all of it was split for Zerubbabel when they went through. Moses' hand was replaced by Zerubbabel's hand, and that's the signet, as the seal of God. It is the signet ring. And I think you can go. Abraham was born in Babylon for the same reason. His Exodus as well. And then before that, even there was Shem did something apparently. Shem versus Nimrod war, and that's where I think that's where Ezekiel gets the Gog and Magog war from. He saw Gog and Magog would be what was it? Greece and Babylon together, and then so he's predicting that. Oh, if it happened here at the first fruits, then it's going to happen at the harvest, and that's all that all the prophets ever did was predict the end from the beginning. And they, but if you haven't got Cyrus Christ versus Greece Antichrist, then you haven't got a prediction. You haven't got. It still hasn't happened. That's what futurism does. Anything that you see here that still hasn't happened, I've got dates for it. We got dates for it. So no, you're saying it still hasn't happened. I don't know. Futurists are just futurists are the same as AD 70. That AD 70 people preach Daniel more than futurists do. They just think, oh, that's all. It's all coming to a head or something, and then there'll be a revelation in 3.5 years, and something will happen. So that all, to me, that all happened. I've also left out, I think I had last time I had a layer of number, I got 888 here. That's the covenants. Was it? Noah, 8 people. Abraham, 8 days. Moses, 8 visits. And then the 777 from mainly from the heptads from Zechariah 4 mainly. He said there's 7 eyes of the Lord, and always the 7 bowls with 7 pipes and all that. And then 666 here, and then I've got 555. That's what we're in now. We're the atonement's done. I think most people agree that 5 means atonement. I think brass does it as well. The mountains of brass. And they come from between the mountains of brass, and then took the iniquity back to Babylon and built a house for it there. That's Zechariah 5, the woman in the basket. And just on Zechariah 5, the flying scroll with the 7 seals in Revelation are all open here. So the slain lamb is the only one who can open it. No, the slain lamb was slain here. This is the sheep, and to the slaughter, and the worthless shepherd sold him out and betrayed him. That's Judas for 30 pieces of silver, which was the gored servant. If you can redeem a gored servant who's been gored. So that was 30 pieces of silver in Leviticus, I think there. And the potter's field. So that they died horribly here. The suffering Christ died. Ben Joseph, the Joseph Christ, son of Joseph, died. And this was all done with 4. So Joseph had 4 garments. He had his father's garment, the slaver's garment, and then Potiphar's garment. And the one that got torn, what was that one? No, that was Potiphar's garment. Anyway, I'm not going to bother about that. But so that's all Joseph, and he goes into the pit here, and he comes out there. Most Jews would say, "Oh no, when Messiah comes, he'll resurrect Joseph," and that's something to do with his bones and everything. And that was Ezekiel 37, the Valley of Dry Bones. And that's where Israel only ends as well. They were, the Valley of Dry Bones was the whole thing. The Israel only was addressed by the first fruits, and in the first fruits, which is an example of the harvest. There was thousands and thousands of people that couldn't prove themselves where they were from, and there were servants. And the 42, 360, 200 singers, the servants, and people who were just nobodies. Apparently, could have been from anywhere in Asia, anywhere in Persia, and a lot of the Ephraim who returned, they were gone longer and longer. They were never ever going to have their genealogy, never ever. So that's, and also what's the covenant eschatology? That's old covenant eschatology, new covenant eschatology.
Okay.
So, and that's why they're wrong. And they've conflated that into AD 70. So
Right.
And that's why they get AD 70 eschatology. I actually Oh, I think it's only Josephus, isn't it? I don't think anything happened. I think it's written as if it happened, but so is like it's written as if um, there was a return of Ephraim or something. Uh, I think Corey says uh, hell happened in AD 70 to returnees, but Paul didn't never mention it. He just said, I don't know where he gets they have to return to Jerusalem to take. I think it's from here that these people went to Jerusalem. They knew what was going to happen 3.5 generations from when Moloch was set up. They started counting, and they knew all the big prophecies. God was going to kill a third of them and all that, and they still went. They still went. So, and that's why the fast. They asked, "Should we fast? Should we still fast or not? Is it over? Did the martyrs vindicated or not?" Um, yeah, so there's a lot of martyrs there, a lot of blood under the altar and all that. There was, it was predicted that was predicted at the end of that, and it was a bloodbath. The stories of Antiochus just wouldn't quit, killing people, and he wanted to Hellenize them. That's where Hellenism comes from. Is they picked it up. They picked it up. How it was done was the phylacteries had to have 666 in them instead of 777. Penises had to be uncircumcised. Clothes, everything, singing, your name, your language, just completely Hellenized, like just like we are now. This is people are saying it's normal and we're slowly getting there, and nothing will happen. It'll just get worse until someone realizes that the godly model was Cyrus, and it wasn't a revolution. It was from 550. The Medes knew what was happening, and they opened the doors from the inside. So, and it was no there was no. If you're thinking of a revolution, how are we going to get rid of politicians? They're going to have to vote themselves out, are they? That's not going to happen, is it? So I just think this is if everyone spoke the truth, like Zechariah said, then we wouldn't have we wouldn't be in this mess. We would have our psyche wouldn't be Hellenized. We'd be free from mental slavery. Like that's what's happening now, mental slavery. It's you get up and you're living like your parents did, and you're getting loans, and you're slaving. You're a wage slave. You're a mortgage slave, or and it's just, and they're people with billions of dollars who are taking money off you and giving it to, who knows, a war somewhere. Ukraine. Like I think, what didn't Biden give? 120 billion. That's what I heard. Someone said 120 billion. He just gave them, and then it's just funding wars. We can stop it. Like we can, if you had enough. Like a lot of people say, yeah, I've had enough. Yeah, what do we do about it? And what's the solution of all this homelessness and empty buildings and 80,000 homeless? So the solution is actually, do you have to go back to whatever we know that's not Hellenized from Cyrus, because he was a doer. Words, what I was saying before, words and names were all important in the Old Covenant. In the New Covenant, words and names mean nothing, absolutely nothing. Nothing to do with God's presence, God's righteousness. It doesn't matter what you sing, make a noise. That's all it says. And with that, the plumb line. So that's from Isaiah 28, and that's where it says line upon line, precept upon precept, line upon line, precept upon precept. And that was I believe that that's something to do with like how many ways do you know? How many preachers have you heard? Like I've been church all my life, and there's about there's 1,000 ways to end up as Jesus as Christ. I admit it, and just by reading the New Testament, and just like here, there's 1,000 ways to do it. to end up here. Like it was worldwide. God backed up what he said about Cyrus, what he said about Zerubbabel. That was worldwide. Everyone knew, had their eye. Everyone's always had their eye on Jerusalem, and that's why Herod put the facade on. He wanted to be godlike. He wanted to be some sort of Messiah there, with his cover up, and that's what the New Testament is. It's the facade on this. So yeah, I'm not going to be very popular with saying things like that. That is popular as a fart in a spacesuit, though. I mean,
Well, it's good. It's interesting stuff, Eric. And I guess I just want to ask one question about that plumb line again. So what is the meaning of the plumb line? Because I understand that I'm assuming it's Cyrus, you know, I don't want to say inflicting justice. I don't know how exactly to phrase it, but bringing justice, I guess, bringing deliverance, manifesting himself as Christ. Is that the plumb line, or what is the meaning of the plumb line? Because I think a lot of people are confused about that.
yeah, because it's not in the New Testament. You can't Hellenize it. You can't de-Hellenize it. So you can't strip away the only way to do that is that I think it's 1 Peter and 2 Peter are so the living stones there. That's the stones were scattered, and then the stones were remembered. A time to scatter and a time to gather. So I think I can't remember which one it was, but 1 Peter, I think it is opposition to the building of the temple, like you read in Ezra, from within. And then that's right. I think 2 Peter is opposition to the building of the temple from without. Internal opposition and external opposition. So, and that's what there was with Zerubbabel and Nehemiah. It happened 3 times, and all 3 times they referred to Cyrus. It's you can't go against Cyrus. And that's why. So in the New Testament, the plumb line would be, well, obviously in the carpenter's hands, and he's building the temple, the church. I think that's where the facade. That's what it started off as midrash. If you could make one person out of all this, and call him Jesus, then he's got to build a temple, because that's what it says in Isaiah 11. If someone comes along and calls himself Messiah and they don't build a temple after Babylon, after exile, with Cyrus's money, then they're not the Messiah. So, and that's only one person. That's only Zerubbabel. And so to put the facade on that, they've got Jesus as Jesus's plumb line would be however they say that the Messianic temple was built. I think it's the people, isn't it? They come together and in Jerusalem. What it says there in one of the worldwide signs was Zechariah 6 was, people will come from all over the world and will build the temple, help build the temple. That's what they did, and so I'm gathering that Jesus is there was a return somewhere, even though is Josephus say it? Because it's not written about, is it? It's everything points to AD 70, and then it doesn't quite get there, does it? It's just sort of, it's about to happen and finishes in what, 68 or something, doesn't it? All that stuff. But so yeah, it's just that you could point at it. It was the banner, the sign. Like in the days of the branch, a sign will be erected, and it will be, the purpose of this sign will be to call the Gentiles home. And then it says, he will build it, he will erect it, what's that? He will raise it. So raise a banner, raise a sign. And that was the temple that Zerubbabel built, that Herod put the facade on. So I think, and that was built with the Plumbline. So all the main thing to remember that God is not going to pass you by, will not pass you by, and that was Israel. Was it Israel? So that's who was resurrected, the people who returned and rebuilt. So it's just, if you can understand Jesus building a church, which I don't know, supposedly finished building, or was the church finished by AD 70? I don't know. So, but this is all finite. It names Zerubbabel's hand. Amos sees the Lord with a plumb line in his hand. His hand, it says. I think some versions say his plumb line in his hand. And then I think Amos says, "What does it mean?" And I can tell you what I'm seeing, but what does it mean? And he says, "I will never again pass you by." So, and I just going back to the visit at Horeb, where God did pass Moses by, put him. That was with his hand. So God's hand had the plumb line in it. That's the hand that was replaced. So going by the Zechariah's vision, it goes from the Ten Commandments went from God's hand to Moses's hand, and then he passes it on. And then in the new covenant, in the new visions, the plumb line goes from God's hand straight into Zerubbabel's hand, and then he does it. He puts the capstone on, and we shout some grace to it, and that's the replacement for curse. But Moses was a curse. You will be cursed. It's in the first commandment. Jealous God, curse your children. That's all law. LAW law. You're going to go into captivity. So, and then all those words, every jot and tittle, was fulfilled, and heaven and earth passed away. And then in the new heaven and earth, we've got the plumb line. You've got to go back to Isaiah 28 again to understand it a bit better, because it says there that, stammering lips and people from far away, and babes, and I think it says, or children. And it's line upon line, and it won't all happen at once. And that's what all the layering is, and that's what the question is to Zechariah. Should we fast? And he doesn't give a short answer there. He goes on for a whole chapter and then quotes some of Haggai, reiterates what Haggai said a week earlier, I think it was, a month earlier maybe, and then says it'll be feasting. Remember me when you fast. Remember me when you eat. That's the water to wine. Zechariah changed that. He said, no, don't fast anymore, but still remember what the fast was about when you eat, because now they're not starving. They were fasting because of the siege. The seed they starved. That was Isaiah 2. I'm about to remove the whole stock and store of bread and water from Judah and Jerusalem. the rich man, the poor man, it'll be the same for everyone. Everyone will be, king, counselor, whatever it says there, slave free. So and those four fasts there in 8:19, and then it says love the truth. It says after that, I think it says 8:19 there. They shall be joyous feasts. So love truth, and righteousness, is it? I think, and it's all that stuff that Paul always says about the kingdom of God is righteousness, joy, and truth or something. I think that's all done there to rip you off of Zechariah's words there. But so the Plumbline raised the Plumbline began Zechariah's ministry to the Gentiles, like Paul's the apostle to the Gentiles. That was Zechariah was the apostle to the Gentiles. That's why I got the sword in the hand and the sword in the mouth was Zechariah. God's words. God wrote it. God said all those things that come out of Zechariah's mouth. That's why there's such a facade on Zechariah with John in Luke 1. If you can, how to enslave the world is to remove the truth, and this is all the only truth that we'll ever get. God's not going to do this again. He's not going to be another Cyrus or another reset. This is the great reset. It's not done Cyrus Christ. God did the great reset. Those verses that Cyrus acted for God. So God did all that. God ended slavery. God, that's how you're supposed to read. But you're supposed to read here. The answer was when you fasted for those 70 years. No, he's here. So when you fasted and mourned for those 70 years, did you really fast for me? For me, he says it twice. For me. So now we know. Now we know who the suffering. Now we know the one who you pierced was. When you mourn for the pierced one, then you'll know what the then you'll know who it is. And God says, "Was me. I was in the fire with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And he didn't come out. He didn't come out of the fire, and that's Lucifer's fire, and the same as it was in Babylon. So that answers the question about, because people say, who died? Who have you got hanging on the cross there? Who had the crown of thorns on their head and everything, and pierced ones? Betrayed and all that. With the Zechariah saying, "Did you fast for me?" That's his answer. Like he's saying, from is it Isaiah 55? Don't be fooled by the wrong fast. Do the right fast, and it's got to be God suffering along with His people. That's how you're supposed to read that. The version in Isaiah 24 is that there's a curse there. The curse is mentioned there. 24. Oh, this is the curse going out through the whole land, and men are desolate. Men are rarer to find than gold, silver or gold or something. So that's how that reads. God is in the fire. But the fire was here, not AD 70. It's also there's a thing there with Saul. You can do a timeline with Saul. Psalm 18 is Saul dying, David's enemies dying, and so there was two kings, wasn't there? David and Saul, and Saul dies here, and David takes over. And 23 24:23. It's got when David's God ascended the throne. This was a sign worldwide that the Lord of Armies, David's God, is now sitting on the throne in Jerusalem, even though there was no two stones left. So the rebuild begins right from the minute of the last exile. I'd say the moment where the door shut in Babylon, the last exile went in. That's when it all started. The rebuild started. Even though in here it's got Jeremiah saying, "Just take it. You're in. This is Babylon." So they're in Babylon, and Jeremiah's telling them, "Plant trees. You're going to be here for 70 years, and don't do anything to hinder what Babylonians are doing or anything like that." So they just had to cop it. This was all part of being the suffering servant, the punishment for no other gods. And but it's also to be a worldwide sign. Like Babylon was worldwide, Jerusalem was worldwide, Cyrus was worldwide, and everything. Darius was worldwide. And I think everyone knew that Zeus stood for 3.5 years, until the facade went up, and then everything suddenly means something else. When the New Testament was released, I think, I can't actually say when it was released, but it wouldn't have been released in the first century because people would become, what? Born under the law? Who's born under the law? They all knew that they're not born. No one was born under the law after this. No Galatian was ever born under the law, And so that's when the facade started. People are actually going, "Oh, I'm under the law. I need a saviour." So apparently really easy to do. It was easy to do. People wanted to believe something and they did, and it's gone from generation to generation. Here we are, thousands of years later, just getting rid of slavery. Just only one generation of slavery, and really, like, women not voting, and like, oh, I just can't. And that's all perpetuated by the slavery in the New Testament. They were freed slaves. There was not women telling men what to do in a church in Corinth in the first century. It just was not going to happen. They were business women. They were managers and owners and things like that of businesses, and made clothes and things. They were artisans. And it was because it was disgusting when Cyrus got there. It was just rich slavers, and women and children were for sex, and pedophilia was okay, lying was okay. That's what the battle of your mind is. That Greece is. So that Zeus, that's a lie, isn't it? When you bow to a god, that's the big lie. That's you finally succumb to the big lie. There's the big truth is no other gods, and the big lie is, oh, he's another god. He's another god. So, so the big truth, that's the hammer. That came under Hellenism, and that's what was needed to be free and expand and grow. And they had to de-Hellenize. And they spent till I think I sent you a map of the last Janaeus. He got to he claimed Davidic borders, and way after this 80 BC, I think it was. And I think that's when they, if you look at what happened to the Hasmoneans, it kept expanding and expanding. They were a threat to Anatolia. That's what that was about. They were a threat to Anatolia, which was the the Greece. But that's where the New Testament's written to Hellenize it. So the battlefield, the ideological battlefield, was Anatolia, Sardis, all those places. And I think that Darius did in Persepolis, he did there's a thing about 23 satraps bringing their tribute, and some of them are from Ethiopia because there's an Akapi, and then there's gold from Anatolia, and there's you see animals from well, Asia, where he was in Asia and all that. So they had a lot of facade work to do, and that's why there's so many. I think if I did all my layers here, you would get rid of if hell's here and nowhere else ever, and you can remove that facade about Jesus, all Jesus is preaching, because Jesus preached hell and wore the curse, which there was no curse in the new covenant. There was only a blessing in the new covenant. It says that in Zechariah, where you were a curse, you will now be a blessing. And that's shouts of blessed, blessing, that replaces Moses's cursing. Well, that was like the crown. The golden crown was a blessing. The blessing replaced the curse. But that sort of doesn't help you de-Hellenize, because they conflate this. They conflate it into one person, and then you have to de-Hellenize it. It's got the empty tomb. This is Lazarus, come out. That's still here. That's still the tomb. That's still Babylon. He was in Babylon, and the women were mourning. That's all Isaiah 2, mourning women. Jesus walking to his death, and he's talking to the women in Isaiah 2. That's how it reads. He's quoting Isaiah. So he's walking to his death, just like these people did, walk to their death, quoting Isaiah 2. Yeah, so I just think, there's so many ways to do it.
Right. Well, let me ask you a question, because we've got a guy who was weighing in earlier. He wanted to ask you a question, and he wants to know, how does the power of the holy people getting shattered result in resurrection? This is coming from Blue Light.
The power of the holy people were completely shattered by the Hellenization. That Zeus stood 167 BC, but also they were Hellenized, say, from it's the first Antiochus. There was Alexander, and then the first Seleucus, and then the first Antiochus, and from Antiochus 1 to Antiochus 4 was the seven. There's there's seven there. There's seven. It's a heptad. There's no maths there. It's the seven were the kings. 70 means one king, and there were seven of them, and they were Hellenized, and then bowed to Zeus. So the power that I'll give you a when. That's the when the power of the people, holy people, were completely shattered 167 BC. And then there's 3.5 years. And also, so I've got, the two witnesses fell. That's the power of the holy people right there. That's the new covenant fell. The two witnesses of the new covenant was Zerubbabel and Joshua, and they fell here when Zeus stood. So Zeus stood for 3.5 years, and that's when the 777 was gone and 666 was in there, and the temple was turned into a gym and all that. That was all completely shattered. The altar was removed. I think he put pigs on the altar, and then that's the last thing that ever happened. They some swine on the altar, and then it was removed or something used for something else, or gym equipment or something. And then so the power of the holy people were completely shattered at the end of the old covenant. Daniel knew that. Daniel means judged of God, so he's in here predicting the end from the beginning. So in the beginning, the power of the holy people were completely shattered by destruction. And here, the power of the holy people were completely shattered by Hellenization. That's the facade, completely shattered. The New Testament completely shatters the New Covenant. Herod's facade completely shattered any sign, the Messiah's sign that I'm here. Oh, I'll cover that up. I'll put something else, And it was, I think he said magnificent. Everyone kept saying magnificent facade, and that's why the New Testament is. It's a magnificent facade. It's really, really hard. It's the ultimate in Hellenism. Everything's number one. Cyrus is gone. That's the number one aim of Greece, is to remove Cyrus, remove this from the human sight. And that's how you control people, by removing the truth. And then anything's the truth. Then you got my truth, and because to Greece, it's a lie. You can lie, and it's okay. Bow or die is lie or die. He's telling these people, lie or die. 666 or die, not 777. I'll kill you if you got 777 in there. So or starve at the first. I think it was 666 or starve, and then I think that's Jason, the false prophet, and then Menelaus was bow or die. I think at the end there. So that what else? So when Judah Maccabee got the hammer out and hammered that Zeus, hammered it to bits, threw it into hell, threw it in. Antiochus knocked the wall, some of the walls down. There's you can just Google that, Hasmonean rebuild. So they actually did follow the Plumbline down. They started rebuilding. The cleansing, the dedication. That's what Hanukkah is. And supposedly God rewarded them with the miracle menorah from Zechariah 4. That wasn't predicted. That actually just happened. They should have predicted. They should have predicted some sort of magic menorah oil at the end there, because it was at the beginning. But once again, just Hellenized into oblivion. So they were completely shattered. The holy people were completely shattered. The power of the holy people was the new covenant here, the old covenant here, obviously. And that was completely, so the new covenant ended 167. What have I got there? Oh no, 164, because it was prophecy. Prophecy had to finish 164, but the millennium finished 167. That's the Valley of Dry Bones. The Gog War started. So the Valley of Dry Bones was complete and formed into a vast army to fight another vast army, Gog and Magog together. So, and that's did he ask how was it shattered, or
He asked about
that's how it was shattered,
the
and
resurrection.
when it was shattered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so Judah Maccabee shattering that is is Michael standing, and that's So what we got there, we've got eternal righteousness, the end of those things, sin, transgression, I forget what's it, all the atonement, the eternal atonement, the eternal Sabbath, eternal righteousness, and that's what you sell out. That's what you choose to keep or treasure or sell. Well, and that's where the birthright comes. The narrative for the birthright and the inheritance. That's actually where we are now. We're in that narrative now where everything you know about Esau despising the birthright and that's Herod. That's he offered. He's offering the New Testament as food here, and give me what you got. You can have this, and then you're just completely robbed of the. He robbed himself by selling out because he's still the narrative there is that Edom is the most heavily judged. God on the winepress treating him like people like grapes. That's all Edom. That's the worst. The worst prophecies ever are given to Edom, and that's where you get. That's where we are now. Edom is doing all the religious stuff that they turncoated with Greece, just the same way they turncoated with Babylon. That's why they got such a bad. They just they were betrayers and all that. They were betrayed their brother and for money and all this sort of stuff. And like there's whole books of Obadiah, I think. So now after the Bible's finished and Michael's stood and everything, and then it just goes in. So the Herods start up, marrying into the Hasmoneans, and to try and it was a concerted effort by Herod Edom to despise what Jacob had, what Israel had in 164. So he would have knew that everyone knew that in the time of with the Herods that this happened, and everyone knew who Cyrus was. That the facade still wasn't happening. So, and he that's why he married the Salome, was it, one of the Hasmonean? I think she was a princess, just to get the royalty going, and well, mainly it just seems to be to get rid of Cyrus, from Jerusalem. If you could get rid of Cyrus from Jerusalem, you can get rid of Cyrus from the whole world, and that's where the Hellenists, who were just Romans by then, they were, you might as well just still call them Greeks because they were just Hellenizers. They just wanted Greek everything, and especially for Jerusalem and Israel, because that's what everyone else apparently just bent over and didn't care about it being Hellenized. But obviously, because of the new covenant that being given into Israel as a sign, this all becomes a sign once it's fulfilled. So yeah, so you can have your power shattered today by Hellenism, by not you're being robbed of God by not waking him up, by not speaking the truth, by not passing on the truth. That's what I said last week. Is asleep in the bow of the boat, and don't you care? They ended up saying, what did they say to him? We're just about dead here, and he woke up, and then he just said, well, why didn't you do it, and all that sort of stuff. So you're going to be powerless. We're sort of powerless because of what Herod done. we had something, and we sold it out. We had world peace and no sexism. We had it, and then Greece didn't want it because you got to have slaves. You got to and just with the Bible, like it's truth versus lie, the big truth versus the big lie, and goodness me, like it's as obvious as that, and it's as subtle as a sledgehammer that God's truth. It wasn't, and I think that's what all the worldwide stuff is about. So you'd have to be what God did there. You'd go, you'd have to be blind not to realise that Cyrus is the fixer up of Christ and the bringer of peace, and Zechariah's the bringer of the word. Cyrus, the Cyrus and Joshua, the signs of the branch. That God said He was going to do something, and He did it. I
That's
don't
very
know.
interesting.
Other than helping people remove the facade, like you can say all this. You can mention stuff about Jesus and go, oh, yeah, but He's there. I can see it there. I can see Him walking on water, and that's the miracle. The miracle is that God's had chosen certain people, family, and then scattered them to the four winds, and then gathered them from the four winds, and that's the miracle. And the four winds where they were scattered to was like, what happened though? Ephraim was swallowed by Assyria. Assyria was swallowed up by Media, Babylon, and Egypt got together, and then Babylon swallowed up all that, and then Persia swallowed the whole lot up and more. And so you're not going to get Israel only from people gathered from every tribe, nation, people, and tongue. And like besides that, Ezra 2 just says they're not Israel only's finished. God's redemptive focus went from Israel only to the children of Israel, and then to the returnees, and then to the saints, and then to everybody after that, after the saints. 3.5 years, and then God's redemptive focus goes worldwide. Everyone's born righteous. And I think the story is that these people were given the righteousness that everyone else already had anyway. So with the Israel only narrative, they were righteous by law, and then they were righteous by the new covenant spirit, and then at the end of that, they weren't righteous at all. Then they were righteous by birth. They were there's no right. Well, the message there is there's no righteousness in Hellenism at all. Like people studying every jot and tittle of Paul and this and that. I don't know. I think they always quote Galatians and then they quote Daniel, and then you say, oh, and that's how they get there. That's how you get to be Hellenized, putting Daniel past 164 BC by mathematics. And oh man, I just don't. Oh, well, it's been a while for me, like since I've found out about answering my kids' questions about things, and I end up like this because your kids ask something about the tomb, about something about Easter or something, and Christmas, and I can pull it all apart and tell you exactly how it happened, and then you got to put it all back together and then put Herod's facade back on to get to Jesus. Yeah, but apart from that,
Well,
there's not. I don't think there's a bit about the Plumbline at the end that the Hasmoneans rebuilt and rededicated, and the temples is still there. So, and I know people might ask it completely shattered. They're claiming that as AD 70 because it was pulled apart, but it was That's not how Hellenism works. Hellenism works the same way this works, but not fire. Hellenism, you Hellenize it. That's how you destroy it. You, you they didn't destroy the temple. Babylon destroyed the temple. Greece Hellenized it. The same result, completely the same result, completely shattering the power of the holy people. So the power of the holy people was that temple was built by Zerubbabel and Cyrus. It's probably written on it somewhere that it was built by Zerubbabel and Cyrus, and probably covered up somewhere by Herod as well, you know. And also it's supposed to be a tabernacle. That's what it was, not supposed to be magnificent. Any temple, it was supposed to be the fallen repair of the fallen tabernacle of David, tent of David, and all that sort of thing. And that's why it was Hellenized, and that's why it was de-Hellenized. And that's important, that Judah circumcising Greeks is a big deal, you know, because they were uncircumcising them. That's what all the whole thing, Hellenism, is uncircumcision, a cover up. So it's opposite of yeah. They didn't. You got to know, they didn't pull it. They didn't destroy it. They Hellenized it. They didn't destroy the altar. They put a pig on it, which is Hellenism. They didn't destroy phylacteries. They Hellenized them. They just said, "What are they for?" They said, "Oh, that's so we know that Cyrus is Christ." Well, we'll get rid of that. So, but you can still have them as long as you Hellenize them. But you can still. So that means you're just lying. It's okay to lie, isn't it? And then pretty soon we're all enslaved in mental slavery, because people keep repeating lies all the time. So, and they get, the way to not tell a lie is to de-Hellenize it. You've got the Zechariah says truth. You know, he says truth. Doesn't say you know the truth. You don't believe. You believe a lie and you know the truth. That's what believe is not anywhere in Zechariah. You won't find believe anywhere, because they didn't have to. He was saying they're in the new covenant. You don't have to believe anything. It's actually happening. The temple's built. The Gentiles are coming back home. And the sign that to Jesus gave was go and tell him that the blind see, the lame walk and all that. That's all here. That's all. You can find that. You know, you're like you're lame. You're not walking with me. And the healings. That's the blindness is from Isaiah 42. There's none blind that none so blind as Israel. And then they'll heal from that blindness when they return. And the fountain the fountain was not Jesus's blood in Zechariah 13. There, that was it. That was the rivers and all that in Joel, and or anything. There was no water here, and there was plenty of water here. But water on the tops of mountains and raining all the time, and all the pools were filled, and Hezekiah's tunnel was running again, and all that. So I think that completely shattering is getting rid of this is completely shattering Daniel's people. Anyway, your people and in your city, I think it says, and that was completely Hellenized, or die. And there's a Hanna-Barbera cartoon about. I'll send it to you. I don't think they took it off YouTube, but it's still on Facebook. I used to watch it as a teenager. They've all got mullets and everything. It's in the 80s, I think, and it's I'll send it to you. You watch
Okay.
it and you can see how Greek they were. They were very, all the food and it's just everything, the street names and the whole place was, the colours of it they had the columns. They did all Corinthian columns everywhere. Yeah, so
Sounds interesting. Well, it's been an hour and a half. I think this was a really
oh,
good session. As a matter of fact, I think we can come back because there's still so much. What you're giving our viewers is, I think, something equivalent to, say, Einstein's theory of relativity, except it's theology. So it's going to take a while for I think,
yeah,
everybody to understand exactly where you're coming from. But the picture is becoming clear. I do want to thank you for sharing your chart. We're going to probably take another closer look at that maybe next time. Now, as far as the calendar goes, next Saturday or next weekend, actually, I will be. I'm in the middle of
yeah,
moving, so I'm going to be moving,
yeah.
and I believe the following weekend after that, I'm going to be moving. What we might be able to do is stage stage another podcast in the middle of the week, maybe not this week coming up, but the following week, maybe even in the middle, somewhere in the middle of the week, if you have the time, and then we could do another podcast on another specific subject. How does that sound?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll have like a 2 week break, I think. I'll
Okay.
write, I've got a thing about the covenant with the jar of manna and that. And I've also, um, I'll leave people with this, that, can you see that? Death
Yes.
is exile. Um, Burial, death, burial, resurrection. Okay. Uh, I've got it up there. Is Babylon. My writing's terrible. And um, so resurrection is return. And that's all throughout. That's sort of the key to this chart, like
Mhm.
death, burial, resurrection. And it will just, um, that's the rich man's tomb. And
Right.
Jacob of Arimathea is just a
That's
straight
a thought.
facade on that. You can just remove that rich man there and put it there, and it's just exactly the same thing. It's the same purpose. It was for his body.
Well,
Yeah,
it's,
and it
it's
was a borrowed.
interesting.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
anyway, and I've got a thing on the covenant, and then Aaron's rod
Okay.
budding and resurrecting or whatever
Wonderful.
that means.
Well, I appreciate you for expatiating on these themes.
Yeah.
Excellent stuff. A lot to think about. You're giving me a lot to think about. I think I'm probably going to watch this video a couple of times just to let it all soak in. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I know we've gone a little bit over tonight, but this was some really intriguing material, and I wanted to make sure that it all got
Thanks for
covered.
that question. Thanks
Yeah,
for that question, that guy. Yeah, that's.
right.
I like questions.
Right. But yeah, we'll be back probably well, maybe not next week, but we'll be back probably at some point the week after. We'll do another one. It'll be a part 4. Until then, I want to thank everybody for your thoughts, your comments, your observations. Thanks for weighing in. Eric, if people have want to get a hold of you, ask questions or anything, do you have, like, I know that you're on Facebook, which is that the recommended way of reaching you, or do you have like an email address that they could reach out to you at, or how do they contact?
Yeah, just on Facebook. I think I'm in a same group that you're in with, and I've left a lot of other. I used to argue with atheists all the time, and
Right.
they got no idea that an atheist is a person who has just got no idea who Cyrus is. And they'll go, and you have to explain it, like where we are now and things like that. But anyway, yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, just on Facebook. I'll be on them groups. I don't go every day. But
Right.
yeah.
Um, yeah, that's okay. So yeah, so we're on a forum called, I believe it's called, let me just make sure to find, I don't want to be misnaming the group. I believe it's like Preterist Perspectives. Yeah, so it's
Perspectives.
great. Yeah, Preterist Perspectives Discussion and Debate. It's a Facebook group, excellent group. I believe it's moderated by Barry and Simon, and excellent moderators. And yeah, so if you join the
Oh,
group, again, it's
yeah, no,
called
I've been there.
yeah, Preterist Perspectives. That's the same one you're on, right?
Yeah, yeah, I'm in that one. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
no worries.
Um, yeah, well,
Oh, by
thank
the
you.
way,
Okay, go ahead.
do you consider yourself that you're journalizing eschatology? Is that all things eschatology? Is that so? You're
Yeah, it's
making a
pretty
journal?
much, yeah, it's pretty much eschatology. So what I'm doing is I'm applying the principles of journalism to, I guess, what you would call apologetics, but what it really is it's pure, it's becoming more and more pure journalism. So what I like to do is get different people's perspectives, and I like to let them present their views without adding my perspective. And then my assumption is that the public, the people watching the video, are intelligent enough to decide what's truth and what's fact and what's fiction. Now, obviously, if somebody's not, has biases or something, they're not gonna arrive at the truth. But that's my assumption. Now, a lot of people don't like that because I'm giving people the benefit of the doubt. Say, well, this, we're intelligent people, or we can understand truth. When we see truth, we can understand it. As long as the truth is presented clearly. But there's other people that don't like that. So I've gotten a lot of pushback about, letting people on and,
Yeah,
letting them present their views. But that's pretty much what it is. It's pretty much journalism.
yeah. I don't know if you know, but Corey Schultz done that. He's done that twice. I think there was a website, and then in one of the preterist groups, it should be pinned, and there's 18 views or 17 views of preterism, and he put all that together with Jen Fishburne, I think, and Fishburne, is it?
Yeah.
And so that might be, but he answered questions. The people who put them up just say corporate body view or whatever, and it's got them answering questions about, and Corey asking questions there. So, and there's a website, and I can't remember what it was, but he interviewed a fair few people, how they started, like you did, how you come to be where you are now in the Bible and everything. So it might be worth looking at, or even ask him next time he's.
Yeah, I've had Corey on the show before, and he's a very nice guy, very personable. I plan on having him back again. It's just I'm a step behind of my
Oh,
expectations. I'm kind
yeah,
of always, I want have these big expectations. I'm always just a little bit behind with my schedule. So yeah, but I plan on having him back, and I plan to do some more interactions. Hopefully, if I can get the time on the internet forums. I don't have a lot of time to interact. I'm basically working on this, but we'll have Corey back here soon. Also, Eric, we'll have you back. Hopefully, not this coming up week, but the following week. Maybe we could do it like earlier in the week. I don't know. We'll talk about it though. But I really enjoyed your presentation tonight, and I want you to continue doing what you're doing, because you could bring in a lot. You're making people think, and I think that's the most important thing. There's always going to be people at the end of the day who don't agree, with what one presents as truth. But as long as you're making people think, I think it's not doing anybody any harm. And I certainly think that if it is true, then you must be doing a positive good. So I do thank you for that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I hope so. I don't get much feedback or anything. So, and people ask me where did I get it from? And obviously not from the New Testament, but you know, yeah. So I think I'm by myself, and I've nearly. Uh, I don't know. I've offended a few people, and I've got I've got lots and lots of. I've had like 14 pastors and that in my family, and we're fourth generation preachers and all this sort of stuff. So I've offended a lot of people there.
Oh yeah.
But
I would imagine.
No, I really don't know that, other than just saying it. And thanks a lot for the opportunity and the questions too. I answer questions more than being a teacher or anything. I can answer a question, but
Right.
it's
Well,
just sort of, yeah, like it's like Christ, it's Messiah to me. So I don't know. It's not a belief either. I would, if I was going to put anything more on there, it would be a belief. What I believe happened. What like implication beliefs, things like that. But I don't know what implications people would make from this. From the implications are that we're Hellenized and Cyrus is not here, and
right.
now we're in a big mess with wars and everything. So, but
Yeah.
anyway, thanks a lot for your
Well,
time. I didn't. It's just so long, isn't it? An hour and a half. I got to
yeah.
stop talking.
Well, it was an enjoyable presentation. I want to thank you, Eric, and I also want to. I wish you well, I think it's Saturday morning in Australia. I wish you a wonderful weekend. We'll be back. We'll weigh in within the next couple of weeks. Until then, thanks everybody for watching. Hope you have a wonderful evening. We'll be back. I will be back tomorrow. I've got a special guest or two coming on. So tune in around, I guess, about 8 o'clock Central Time, and you'll have a good show to watch. Anyways, thanks again. Have a wonderful